Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing my reading and review of The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and ways to listen and ways to support the show at the website, which is salsidoparanormal.com. And that's SALSIDO paranormal.com. To support the show, you can go to the Patreon page there, or you can find the merchandise store there. And support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. Also, please check out friends of the show. Jen, the Arcane Observer, has her own channel and also is the co-host of this show, as well as Michael Strange of the Trouble Minds radio show and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And there you can hear my show, along with many other amazing shows, 24/7 through their online radio station there. So, as I always say for these readings, these reading and review shows, we may not all agree with the thoughts and words of Charles Fort as he writes there, so just keep that in mind. His views are not necessarily my own views or yours all the time. So that will happen, and that's okay. Also, keep in mind that these books were written in the early 1900s, so there may be some things that seemed mysterious at that time that may have been figured out since then by science as well. And of course, the last thing, as always, is I will mispronounce names and words, names of places and people and words, partly because there are some things in other languages, and of course just because in general words are difficult. They are hard. So let me get back to the material here, and we'll get this we'll get this going. So let's see here. Have to find my spot again. Okay. Let's see. Okay, yeah. This says, then Dr. Oh, I think I already read that paragraph. Let's see. Okay. The damnation of denial and the damnation of disregard. After the publication of Dr. Wineland's findings, silence. Well, that's funny. We're at the end of a chapter. So that is the end of a chapter. That is chapter 6 finished, and we are on to a new chapter. If I would have known that, I might have gone a little bit extra, but that's all right. This chapter 7, starting this now. The living things that have come down to this earth attempts to preserve the system. That small frogs and toads, for instance, never have fallen from the sky, but were, in quotation marks, on the ground in the first place, in quotation marks, or that there have been such falls up from one place in a whirlwind and down in another. Were there some especially foggy place near Europe, as there is an especially sandy place? The scientific explanation would, of course, be that all small frogs falling from the sky in Europe come from that center of frogidity. I'm not sure if that's a word. F-R-O-G-E-I-T-Y. Frogidity. That's, yeah, anyway. To start with, I'd like to emphasize something that I am permitted to see because I am still primitive or intelligent or in a state of maladjustment. That there is not one report findable of a fall of tadpoles from the sky. As to there in the first place, see Leisure Hours 3-779 for accounts of small frogs or toads said to have been seen to fall from the sky. The writer says that all observers were mistaken. That seems common even today. That the frogs or toads must have fallen from trees or other places overhead. That is so common today still. Oh, 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 people saw a ghost or a UFO or a cryptid. Oh, well, they're all mistaken. Really? Okay. Anyway, that's me. That's not Fort. But anyway, as you can tell, I have some feelings on those kinds of statements. But anyway, back to the reading here. Tremendous number of little toads, 1 or 2 months old, that were seen to fall from a great thick cloud that appeared suddenly in a sky that had been cloudless. August 1804, in near Toulouse, France, according to a letter from Professor Fontes to M. Arago, Comtes Rendus 3-54. Many instances of frogs that were seen to fall from the sky, in parentheses, notes and queries 8-6-104, in parentheses, accounts of such falls signed by witnesses, again, notes and queries 8-6-190. Scientific American, July 12th, 1873. In quotation marks, a shower of frogs which darkened the air and covered the ground for a long distance is the reported result of a recent rainstorm at Kansas City, I think Missouri, M.O. I'm terrible at remembering all the state abbreviations. As to having been there in the first place, little frogs found in London after a heavy storm, July 30th, 1838. Notes and queries 8-7-437. So again, he's just listing things off here. Little toads found in a desert after a rainfall. Notes and queries 8-493. To start with, I do not deny, positively, the conventional explanation of up and down, as in up from one place and down to another. I think that there may have been such occurrences. I omit many notes that I have upon indistinguishables. In the London Times, July 4th, 1883, there is an account of a shower of twigs and leaves and tiny toads in a storm upon the slopes of the Apennines. These may have been the ejectamenta of a whirlwind. I add, however, that I have notes upon 2 other falls of tiny toads in 1883, one in France and one in D. Also of fish in Scotland. But in the phenomenon of the Apennines, the mixture seems to me to be typical of the products of a whirlwind. And that's the one I believe with the leaves and twigs and the toads, which I can agree with. That seems maybe more likely because you have multiple kinds of things coming down that could have been picked up all at one time. So the other instances seem to me to be typical of something like migration. Their great numbers and their homogeneity over and over in these annals of the damned occurs the datum of segregation. But a whirlwind as is thought of as a condition of chaos, quasi-chaos, not final negativeness, of course. Monthly Weather Review, July 1881. In quotation marks, a small pond in the track of the cloud was sucked dry, the water being carried over the adjoining fields together with a huge quantity of soft mud, which was scattered over the ground for half a mile around. In quotation marks. It is so easy to say that small frogs that have fallen from the sky have been scooped up by a whirlwind. But here are the circumstances of a scoop. In the exclusionist imagination, there is no regard for mud, debris from the bottom of a pond, floating vegetation, loose things from the shores, but a precise picking out of frogs only. Of all instances I have that attribute the fall of frogs, or small frogs or toads, to whirlwinds, only one definitely identifies or places the whirlwind. So in other words, only one actually tracks the thing from the origin point, from where it starts, to where the fall ends up. Whereas most other ones, from what I'm understanding, people just see the things coming down. No one ever in any other area nearby necessarily sees the things going up, which is, I think, is a good point on Fort's part there. Also, as has been said before, a pond going up would be quite as interesting as frogs coming down. Whirlwinds we read of over and over, but where and what whirlwind exactly? Like I was just saying, it seems to me that anybody who had lost a pond would be heard from. In Simmons' Meteorological Magazine, 32-106, a fall of small frogs near Birmingham, England, June 30th, 1892, is attributed to a specific whirlwind, but not a word as to any special pond that had contributed. And something that strikes my attention here is that these frogs are described as almost white. I'm afraid there is no escape for us. We shall have to give to civilization upon this earth some new worlds, places with white frogs in them. Upon several occasions, we have had data of unknown things that have fallen from somewhere. But something not to be overlooked is that if living things have landed alive upon this earth, in spite of all we think we know of the accelerative velocity of falling bodies, and have propagated, why the exotic becomes the indigenous, or from the strangest of places, we'd expect the familiar. Or if hosts of living frogs have come here from somewhere else, every living thing upon this earth may ancestrally have come from somewhere else. Let's see, lost my spot. I find that I have another note upon a specific hurricane. Annals and Magazine of Nature, Natural History, 1-3-185. After one of the greatest hurricanes in the history of Ireland, some fish were found in quotation marks, as far as 15 yards from the edge of a lake, in quotation marks. Have another. This is a good one for the exclusionists. Fall of fish in Paris. Said that a neighboring pond had been blown dry. Living age 52-186. Date not given, but I have seen it recorded somewhere else. The best known fall of fishes from the sky is that which occurred at Mountain Ash in the Valley of Aberdare, Glamorganshire, February 11th, 1859. I'm not sure if I said any of that right. The editor of the Zoologist 2-677, having published a report of a fall of fishes, writes, in quotation marks, I am continually receiving similar accounts of frogs and fishes, in quotation marks. But in all the volumes of the Zoologist, I can find only 2 reports of such falls. There is nothing to conclude other than that hosts of data have been lost because orthodoxy does not look favorably upon such reports. The monthly weather review records several falls of fishes in the United States, but accounts of these reported occurrences are not findable in other American publications. Nevertheless, the treatment by the zoologist of the fall reported from Mountain Ash is fair. First appears in the issue of 1859-6493 a letter from the Reverend John Griffith, vicar of Aberdare, asserting that the fall had occurred chiefly upon the property of Mr. Nixon of Mountain Ash. Upon page 6540, quite a lot of pages, Dr. Gray of the British Museum, bristling with exclusionism, writes that some of these fishes which had been sent to him alive were very young minnows. He says, in quotation marks, on reading the evidence, it seems to me most probably only a practical joke that one of Mr. Nixon's employees had thrown a pailful of water upon another who had thought fish in it had fallen from the sky, in quotation marks, had dipped up a pail full from a brook. Those fishes, still alive, were exhibited at the Zoological Gardens, Regent's Park. The editor says that one was a minnow and that the rest, were sticklebacks. Okay. He says that Dr. Gray's explanation is no doubt right. But upon page 6564, he publishes a letter from another correspondent who apologizes for opposing, in quotation marks, so high an authority as Dr. Gray, in quotation marks, but says that he had obtained some of these fishes from persons who lived at a considerable distance apart, or considerably out of range of the playful pail of water. According to the Annual Register, 1859-14, the fishes themselves had fallen by pailfuls. If these fishes were not upon the ground in the first place, We base our objections to the whirlwind explanation upon two data. They fell in no such distribution as one could attribute to the discharge of a whirlwind, but upon a narrow strip of land about 80 yards long and 12 yards wide. The other datum is again the suggestion that at first seemed so incredible, but for which support is piling up. A suggestion of a stationary source overhead. That 10 minutes later, another fall of fishes occurred upon this same narrow strip of land. Even arguing that a whirlwind may stand still axially, it discharges tangentially. Wherever the fishes came from, it does not seem thinkable that some could have fallen and that others could have whirled even a tenth of a minute, then falling directly after first to fall. Because of these evil circumstances, the best adaptation was to laugh the whole thing off and say that someone had soused someone else with a pail full of water in which a few very young minnows had been caught up. Let's check out the length of this next paragraph. It's almost a full page. We'll start it, and we'll probably end here. In the London Times, March 2nd, 1859, is a letter from Mr. Aaron Roberts, curate of St. Peter's, Carmarthen. In this letter, the fishes are said to have been about 4 inches long, but there is some question of species. I think myself that they were minnows and sticklebacks. Some persons, thinking them to be sea fishes, placed them in salt water, according to Mr. Roberts. The effect is stated to have been almost an instantaneous death. Some were placed in fresh water. These seem to thrive well. As to narrow distribution, we are told that the fishes fell, in quotation marks, in and about the premises of Mr. Nixon, in quotation marks again. It was not observed at the time that any fish fell in any other part of the neighborhood, save in the particular spot mentioned. In the London Times, March 10th, 1859, Vicar Griffith writes an account. The roofs of some houses were covered with them. So that's where we're going to stop. There's another paragraph I might be able to finish, but we'll start the next one of these shows with that when we do these again. So here we've gone from we've gone from rocks and stones and coal to frogs and toads and fish. So falling from the sky, seemingly unexplainably. Anyway, thank you all for being here and listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.